friends. This is another episode of the program Empire of Lies, in which we talk about manipulation and disinformation of the Russian media. Zelensky between Western pressure and threats of nationalists, how Russian TV constructs the image of the president of Ukraine. Russian political talk shows, in particular the program Big Game, continue to use every speech of Volodymyr Zelensky to strengthen the narrative of his political doom. In the latest broadcast, the main emphasis is placed on his statements about a just peace and a categorical refusal to make territorial concessions. Zelensky against compromise. In his speech on the Independence Day of Ukraine, the president emphasized, "We need a just peace, and only we will decide the future." For Russian propaganda, this became a pretext to claim that Kyiv is returning to the point of no return and is effectively blocking negotiations. Television speakers actively quoted radical figures like Serhiy Stanenko, who warned that the cession of territories will be a bomb under sovereignty for Zelensky and a threat to his life. Such an emphasis is needed to instill in the European viewer the idea that peace is impossible because Ukrainian society is obsessed with war. Political corps and Western curators. Commentators predict that Zelensky is already politically doomed and can be replaced if Washington decides to change tactics. It is important that Russian channels here deliberately remove responsibility from the Kremlin, presenting any changes in Kyiv as a decision of curators of Ukraine. Thus, Ukraine is portrayed not as a subject, but as an object of external control. Energy front and Hungary special attention was paid to the attack on the Druzhba oil pipeline. Against this backdrop, criticism from Budapest and Bratislava was aired. Hungary and Slovakia are declaring a violation of their energy security. Propaganda is using this episode to show that Kyiv is allegedly harming its allies and undermining its own positions. Here, a narrative is being built about terror against Eastern Europe, where Ukraine is presented not as a victim of aggression, but as a source of threats. Lavrov and the illegitimacy of Zelensky Russian diplomacy, through Lavrov's statements, is reinforcing the line. Putin's meetings with Zelensky are only possible in a working format and not to give legitimacy to the Ukrainian leader. On television, he has already openly called the de facto head of the regime, emphasizing doubts about constitutional legitimacy. This is another element of pressure to create doubts among Western audiences about whether it is worth negotiating with the current president of Ukraine at all. They understood one simple thing. It seems to me that Spengler, when we reread him, wrote that 2200 is the end of Europe. But it seems to me that he was 180 years off. Well, I must say that Spengler, in the Russian translation, it was the decline of Europe, and in the original, it was the decline of the West. By the way, the Times newspaper recently published a cartoon, which in general reflects what we have talked about quite often, where Trump is depicted as a naked king, whom the entire European elite welcomes as a great and wonderful leader, and everyone says what a wonderful outfit he has. But in fact, there is also a problem here with the United States itself, not only with Europe. And now, of course, like a mantra, the West is repeating words about creating a security guarantee for Ukraine. That is, this is considered almost the main component of the peace plan. Although, judging by what they are discussing as a security guarantee, this is exactly what Russia will definitely not accept, and what could torpedo the peace process, like the presence of various peacekeepers. But now there are actually different approaches to what is meant by guarantee of this security for Ukraine, Europe as ballast. The discussions again echoed the idea that the US is supposedly evolving towards accepting Russian logic, while Europe remains in a dead end. European demands for security guarantees are presented as unrealistic and torpedoing the peace process. You were on the Empire of Lies program. See you soon.